They say darkness does not knock before it enters. One night, it came for a village. Not with warning. Not with mercy. Children cried. Fathers stood powerless. And a choice was made that would haunt them for years. She could have run. She could have saved herself. But she stayed. And sometimes, staying is more dangerous than running. 3 years. Chains. Silence. And a dying king with one final request. Was she a victim? Was she a hero? Or was she the spark that would either destroy everything, or bring it back to life? This is Tales by Amma, where stories breathe. If you love powerful African stories filled with suspense, emotion, and unforgettable twists, like this video, share it, subscribe to Tales by Amma, and turn on your notification bell. Because the story you are about to hear will stay with you long after it ends. In the village of Kagoro, there lived a simple family. The parents were Mr. and Mrs. Wara. They were not rich, but they were respected. They believed in hard work, honesty, and prayer. They had 2 daughters, Sumi and Wara. Kagoro was a peaceful village. It was not a place of wealth, but it was a place of unity. The people loved one another like one big family. No one felt alone. If one person was in need, others stepped in to help. Every morning, men and women went to their farms together. They planted crops side by side. They harvested together when the time came. If someone was weak or sick, neighbors helped to finish their work. No farm was left behind. The elders met often under the leadership of their great king. They discussed matters of the village and made decisions for the good of everyone. The king was wise and fair. He listened before he spoke. He settled disputes with calm words. Because of him, Kagoro remained united. Meetings were not only for elders. The youth gathered too. They learned respect. They learned discipline. They learned how to serve their land. Festivals were special in Kagoro. When it was time to celebrate, the whole village came alive. Families prepared food together. Drums were played. Children ran freely. Laughter filled every compound. It was during these times that the strength of their unity could be seen clearly. Prayer was part of daily life. Each household prayed for peace. They prayed for protection. They prayed for growth and progress. The people of Kagoro believed that unity and prayer kept their village strong. Everyone knew each other. Names were not forgotten. Stories were shared across generations. Children grew up knowing the elders. The elders watched the children grow. Among these families stood the home of Mr. and Mrs. Wara. They lived across their farm. Their house was simple but organized. Their farm was not large, but it provided enough for them. They worked hard and never complained. People respected Mr. Wara for his discipline. He was a man of few words. When he spoke, people listened. Mrs. Wara was gentle and wise. She guided other women with calm advice. Together, they raised their daughters with strong values. And so, in the heart of Kagoro, the family of light lived quietly but meaningfully. Sumi was the eldest daughter. She carried responsibility beyond her age. Whenever her parents went to the farm or attended village meetings, Sumi managed the home. She swept the compound. She prepared meals. She ensured things were in order. If something needed fixing, she found a way to fix it. If her younger sister needed guidance, she gave it. Sumi was calm. She did not speak carelessly. She listened more than she talked. Many women in the village said she would become a strong wife and mother one day. The younger children respected her. Even some adults trusted her judgment. She moved with maturity. She understood sacrifice. Though she was serious most times, she loved her sister deeply. She protected Wara when needed. She corrected her when necessary. To Sumi, family came first. Wara the light. Wara was different. Where Sumi was calm, Wara was warm. Where Sumi was serious, Wara was cheerful. Wara had a way of making people feel seen. She greeted elders with respect. She shared food with friends without thinking twice. She smiled easily. Every child loved her. During festivals, children waited for her arrival. They wanted her in their games. They wanted her in their dance circles. They wanted her by their side. Her name followed her light. People said her presence brightened gatherings. If there was tension between children, Wara settled it with kind words. If someone was sad, she sat beside them. Even elders noticed her character. They would say, "That child carries peace." Mr. and Mrs. Wura were proud of both daughters. They saw strength in Sumi. They saw hope in Wura. Every night, after the day's work, they prayed for them. They prayed that Sumi would remain wise. They prayed that Wura would remain kind. They prayed that both daughters would grow into women who would bless Kagoro. At that time, life in Kagoro was steady. Peace was strong. Unity was alive. And in that peaceful village, under the care of loving parents, the girl called Light continued to shine. One year, something strange entered Kagoro. At first, no one called it famine. They thought it was just a delay. Farmers planted as they always did. They waited as they always waited. But weeks passed. The crops did not grow. The streams became thin. The wells became shallow. Food began to reduce in every home. For the first time, families that once shared freely began to measure what they had. Mothers divided meals carefully. Fathers returned from the farm with silent faces. Children stopped playing for long hours. Even festivals became quiet. 1 month passed. Then 2. Then 3. By the 6th month, it was clear. There was no food. No water. No crops to harvest. Kagoro had never seen such a season. The elders gathered quickly. Men sat in circles. Women stood behind, listening. The king listened to reports from every family. Some said maybe the gods were angry. Some said maybe another village had done something. Some said maybe the land itself was tired. Then one old man stood up and said, "This is not ordinary." The king remained calm. After a long silence, he spoke. "We will not sit and wait. We will find out what is happening." He chose 5 strong men. Men who knew the paths. Men who were brave. They were to go to the next village and return with answers. The whole community watched as the 5 men left Kagoro. Children waved at them. Women prayed quietly. The king assured the people they would return soon. At that moment, hope still lived in Kagoro. But something unseen had already begun to move. The silence and the attack. The missing men. The first week passed. No sign of the 5 men. The people remained patient. Travel could take time. The second week passed. Still nothing. Whispers began. What if they decided to stay there? What if something happened? What if the other village is hiding something? Confusion filled Kagoro. The king tried to calm the people, but even he looked worried. Sumi noticed the tension. She saw her father sit quietly at night. She saw her mother pray longer than usual. Wura felt it too. One evening, Wura stood at the edge of the path the men had taken. She stared into the distance. She felt something was wrong. That night, no one slept peacefully. The night of chaos. It happened suddenly. Voices. Heavy footsteps. Strange sounds that did not belong to Kagoro. Men from another village entered Kagoro. They did not come quietly. They came prepared. The villagers rushed out with their children. Mothers held their babies tightly. Fathers stood in front of their homes. The foreign men did not greet anyone. Their leader stepped forward and spoke clearly. "You have what belongs to us." The villagers looked at each other in confusion. The leader continued. "For 6 months, our village has suffered because of you. Your 5 men came to spy on us. They did not return because we kept them." Gasps filled the air. The 5 men were alive, but held. The leader's voice became firm. "You will give 1 child from every family, or your 5 men will never return." Silence. Then cries. The king stepped forward and pleaded, but the foreign men were many. They were stronger. They were ready. The people of Kagoro were outnumbered. Families knelt. Mothers begged. Fathers argued. But the demand did not change. 1 child from every family. That was the price. Mr. and Mrs. Wura stood frozen. Sumi held her mother's arm tightly. Before anyone could speak, Wura stepped forward. "I will go," she said softly. Her mother shook her head. Her father's eyes filled with tears. He held her shoulders and said, "You are light. Go and come back safe." Other families followed. One by one, children stepped forward. The night that once carried peace now carried pain. Wura did not cry. She turned once to look at Sumi. Sumi tried to be strong, but her tears fell freely. As the children were taken away, something changed in Kagoro. That was the most painful day in the history of the village. The 5 men were released, but freedom did not return. From that day, Kagoro was under the control of another village. Food was still scarce. Hope was weaker. Fear replaced unity. And somewhere in the middle of that sorrow walked Wura, the girl called Light, into a future no one could see. But even in captivity, light had not gone out. It was only waiting. The people of Kagoro were taken to the foreign village in groups. They did not walk as visitors. They walked as captives. The 5 men who had first gone to spy were already there, weak and ashamed. They could not meet the eyes of their people. From the first day, work began. Men were sent to heavy labor. Women were sent to grind, fetch, and cook. Children were assigned small tasks at first, but even those felt too big for their young hands. No one was beaten without reason, but no one was free either. Every morning, they woke up to instructions. Every evening, they returned tired and silent. At first, they believed it would not last long. They told themselves the king of Kagoro would find a way. They told themselves something would change. Weeks turned to months. Months turned to a year. The people of Kagoro began to look different. Their shoulders bent. Their voices lowered. Even laughter disappeared. Sumi was not there to encourage Wura. Her mother was not there to pray over her at night. Her father was not there to remind her she was light. Wura missed them deeply. Sometimes, at night, she would sit quietly and think of Kagoro. She would remember the meetings, the festivals, the way children called her name. But she did not allow herself to break. 2 years passed. Some villagers began to accept their new life. Some said, maybe this is our fate. Some said, at least we are alive. Hope began to fade. But not in Wura. There was something in her that refused to bow. Wura gains trust. The girl who worked with dignity. Wura did not work like someone defeated. She carried water without complaint. She cleaned with care. She spoke respectfully to those above her and kindly to those beside her. Other captives noticed. Why do you act like this? One woman asked her. They have taken everything from us. Wura replied softly. They have not taken who we are. She worked as if she was serving her own home. She helped the elderly captives. She encouraged the younger ones. Her strength was quiet but visible. It did not take long for the foreign king to hear about her. One afternoon, a guard came for her. The king wants to see you. Whispers followed her as she walked. Be careful. Do not trust them. Do not say too much. Wura entered the king's chamber calmly. The king studied her. He had heard that she was different. He did not shout. He did not threaten. Instead, he tested her. There is food at the gate, he said. Other villagers have brought supplies. Go and collect them. The gate was not heavily guarded. It led to paths that could take someone far away. Wura understood the test immediately. If she wanted to run, she could try. Some guards watched her closely, but not too closely. She walked to the gate. She collected the food. She spoke politely to those who delivered it. And she walked back. When she returned, the king looked surprised. You had the chance, he said. Why did you not run away? The room was silent. Wura lifted her head. I cannot leave my people behind, she said. If I run, I save myself. But if I stay, maybe I can help them. The king leaned back. He had ruled many people. He had seen fear. He had seen anger. He had seen rebellion. But he had not seen this. Trust began that day. From then on, he gave her small responsibilities. She supervised the sharing of food. She ensured captives were not cheated. She carried messages within the village. Some captives were afraid. Do not get too close to them, they warned her. They are not our people. But Wura understood something they did not. Sometimes, change does not come from fighting. Sometimes, it comes from patience. The king watched her closely for months. She did not steal. She did not lie. She did not betray her people. Slowly, the treatment of the captives improved. Work hours became shorter. Food portions became fairer. No one knew why. But Wura knew. Trust had begun to grow. 1 more year passed. 3 years in captivity. Some villagers started to whisper again, not in fear this time, but in quiet hope. Maybe something is changing. Maybe light is still shining. But no one knew how deep the king's trust went. No one knew what would happen next. And Wura herself did not know that her greatest test was still ahead. Because in the palace, behind closed doors, the king had begun to fall sick. And his time was running out. The sickness came quietly. At first, the foreign king only complained of weakness. He stopped attending long meetings. He no longer inspected the workers himself. Whispers spread through the compound. He is not well. He looks different. Maybe this is the beginning. Wura noticed it before many others did. The king's voice had lost its strength. His hands shook when he tried to lift a cup. His steps became slow. Then one evening, the palace guards rushed to call her. The king is asking for you. Some captives looked at her with suspicion. Some looked at her with fear. Be careful, one elderly man said. When power begins to fall, people look for someone to blame. Wura walked into the chamber. The king lay on a mat, his breathing heavy. His eyes were still sharp, but his body had weakened. He waved everyone out except her. For a moment, silence filled the room. I know my time is short, he said. Wura did not speak. She simply listened. I have ruled with strength, he continued, but strength alone does not build peace. There was bitterness in his tone. Maybe regret. For 3 years, Kogoro had lived under his command. Some were treated better because of Wura. But they were still captives. Wura had every reason to hate him. Yet she brought him water. She adjusted his covering. She stayed beside him through the night. Some people could not understand her. Why care for the man who held us? A woman asked her later. Wura answered quietly. If we lose our kindness, then we have already lost everything. Days passed. The king grew weaker. His son, the heir, began to sit in meetings. Unlike his father, he was younger and less experienced. Some elders in that village already questioned him. One night, when the chamber was empty again, the king called Wura closer. I trusted you when others told me not to, he said. You could have escaped. You did not. He struggled to sit up. I have one request. Wura felt her heart beat faster. If my son listens to you, the king said, guide him toward peace. Not fear. Promise me. It was not the request she expected. She thought he would ask her to protect his family. Or to stay and serve the palace. Instead, he was asking her to influence power. Wura hesitated. She remembered Kogoro. She remembered the night of chaos. She remembered children crying. Bitterness rose in her chest. But she looked at the weak man before her. I will do what is right, she said. The king closed his eyes. Before dawn, he was gone. The news spread quickly. The village that once feared him now felt uncertain. Some were relieved. Some were worried. Because when a strong ruler dies, anything can happen. And captives are always the first to suffer. The declaration. Freedom announced. The heir wasted no time. The next morning, he called Wura. The captives watched as she was escorted again to the palace. This time, the walk felt heavier. What if he blames her? What if he punishes us? What if the father's trust dies with him? Wura entered the chamber. The young heir stood near the seat of power. He did not look angry. He looked burdened. My father spoke highly of you, he said. Wura remained silent. He said you are not a slave. He said you are a leader. Those words were dangerous. Some elders in the room frowned. They did not like the idea of a captive influencing the throne. The heir stepped forward. My father's last days were clear. He said strength without peace destroys a kingdom. He paused. And he said the people of Kogoro have paid enough. The room grew tense. One elder objected. They were our security. They worked for us. The heir's voice became firm. We will not build our future on bitterness. He turned to Wura. You once told my father you would not leave your people behind. Today, you will lead them home. The declaration was made. Clear. Strong. Final. The people of Kogoro were free. At first, the captives did not believe it. Freedom after 3 years felt unreal. Soldiers were assigned to escort them back not as guards, but as protection. Food was prepared. Clothes were given. Supplies were arranged. Some villagers from the foreign land looked bitter. They had grown used to cheap labor. Some whispered that it was a mistake. But the heir did not change his mind. When Wura stepped outside and announced the news, silence came first. Then tears. Men who had not cried in years wept openly. Women fell to their knees. Children shouted. For the first time in 3 years, hope returned without fear. On the day of departure, something unexpected happened. The heir brought out a horse. "This is for you," he told Wura. She hesitated. "I am only one of them," she said. "No," he replied. "You are the reason." As they began their journey, Wura rode ahead, not in pride, but in responsibility. Behind her walked her people. Some still carried scars. Some still carried anger. Some still carried pain. But they were walking home. And though freedom had come, the bitterness of the past had not fully disappeared. Wura knew something important. Going home would not fix everything. Kogoro would need healing. And light would need to shine brighter than ever. The journey back to Kogoro was long. Every step carried memory. Every face carried scars. Some walked in silence. Some whispered prayers. Some were afraid to hope too much. Wura rode at the front, but her heart was not proud. It was heavy. 3 years had passed. 3 years of captivity. 3 years of waiting. 3 years of pain. As they approached Kogoro, Wura's breathing changed. She knew the path. She recognized the land. But when they entered the village, something felt wrong. Kogoro was no longer the same. The compounds looked smaller. The energy was weak. The people who remained behind moved slowly. Some of the elders had grown thin. Some faces were missing. It was no longer the Kogoro she remembered. The soldiers who escorted them stood back, watching quietly. For a moment, no one moved. Was this truly home? Wura stepped down from the horse. She walked forward slowly. She saw her father's compound. The door was closed. Her hands began to shake. What if they were gone? What if she had survived only to lose everything? The air felt tight in her chest. Just when she thought all was lost. She heard it. Wura. Her name. Clear. Strong. Familiar. She turned quickly. It was Sumi. Older. Stronger. But still Sumi. For a second, they both froze, as if afraid the moment would disappear. Then they ran toward each other. They embraced tightly. No words came out at first. Only tears. Real tears. The kind that come from years of waiting. The villagers began to gather. Some stared in shock. Some began to cry. Then the voices rose. It is Wura. It is light. Children who had grown taller during her absence stared at her with wonder. Old men wiped their eyes. Mrs. Wura stepped forward slowly, supported by her husband. When Wura saw her parents, she dropped to her knees. Her father lifted her up and held her firmly. "You came back," he whispered. "You said I would," she replied through tears. For the first time in years, Kogoro felt alive again. But joy was not complete. Because the village had changed. And so had the people. The lady called light. Hope restored. The reunion lasted all day. Families found one another. Parents hugged children who had left as teenagers and returned as adults. Names were called. Stories were shared. But as night approached, Wura noticed something. Some villagers were not celebrating. Some stood at a distance, watching quietly. 3 years had created wounds. Not everyone had survived. Not everyone had forgiven. Later that evening, the elders called a meeting. They wanted to hear everything. Wura stood before them and told the story. She told them about the slavery. She told them about the king. She told them about the test at the gate. She told them about the last request. When she mentioned that the foreign king had asked her to guide his son toward peace, murmurs filled the gathering. After everything, one man asked bitterly. "They took our children," another said. Wura did not argue. "I did not forget what they did," she said quietly. "But if we allow anger to rule us now, then we remain captives in our hearts." Silence followed. Sumi stepped forward. "She did not leave us," Sumi said. "She could have escaped. She stayed for us." An elderly woman raised her hand. "My son did not return," she said softly. "But I see hope again because she came back." The room softened. Then something unexpected happened. One of the 5 men who had first gone to spy stood up. His voice trembled. "It was not only the other village that caused our pain," he confessed. "We went there without permission. We entered their land in secret. When they caught us, they believed we came to attack." Gasps spread across the gathering. The famine had not been caused by the foreign village. It had been natural. Fear and suspicion had created war. The truth sat heavily on everyone's chest. For years, they had blamed only one side. Now, they saw that pride and fear had played a part. Tears flowed again, but this time, not just from pain. From realization. Wara stepped forward. "We cannot change the past," she said. "But we can decide what Kagoro becomes next." The elders nodded slowly. The soldiers who had escorted them waited at the edge of the meeting. They had expected anger. They had expected revenge. Instead, they saw something different. The next morning, Kagoro began to rebuild. Fields were cleared again. Meetings resumed. Children played once more. But this time, something was different. Unity was stronger. Because they had tasted loss. Because they had survived captivity. Because light had returned. Days later, as the soldiers prepared to leave, the heir from the foreign village sent a message. He wished for peace between both communities. Some villagers were still unsure. But Wara stood firm. "We will not live in fear again," she said. Peace was agreed upon. And slowly, Kagoro healed. The children began to call her by a new name. Not just Wara. They called her the lady called Light. Whenever disputes rose, they said, "Call Light." Whenever someone felt hopeless, they said, "Remember Light." Wara did not sit on a throne. She did not wear a crown. But she carried something stronger. Trust. One evening, as she sat with Sumi outside their home, Sumi asked her quietly, "Did you ever feel afraid?" Wara smiled gently. "Every day." "Then why didn't you run?" Wara looked toward the people of Kagoro laughing in the distance. "Because light is not meant to shine alone." Sumi held her hand. And as the village settled into peace once again, the people understood something important. The famine had tested them. The captivity had broken them. But forgiveness had rebuilt them. From that day, Kagoro was no longer known only as a peaceful village. It became known across lands as the home of light. And the story of Wara was told from generation to generation. Not as a story of slavery. Not as a story of famine. But as a story of a girl who chose her people over her freedom. And returned home not just as Wara, but as hope. And so, Kagoro learned something that many villages never do. That strength is not always loud. That courage is not always carried with weapons. And that sometimes, the greatest battles are won by those who refuse to abandon their people. Wara could have chosen freedom alone. But she chose loyalty. She chose patience. She chose light. And because of that choice, a broken village found its way back to hope. But let me ask you something. If you were in her place, would you have stayed? Or would you have run? Tell me in the comments below. I really want to hear your thoughts. If this story touched you, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who loves powerful African stories, and subscribe to Tales by Amma. Turn on your notification bell so you never miss another story filled with suspense, emotion, and unforgettable twists. Until our next tale. Remember, even in the darkest moments, light can still return. This is Tales by Amma.